we're going to just jump right into what you love, what you need in your life, and that's Elden Ring. And I can't think of a better person to do that than Dan Tack. Dan, you got to play 10 hours of this game, correct?
Correct. 10 hours of unfiltered, somewhat unrestricted play. So way more than the network test. Yeah, but 10 hours.
Okay.
And I got to talk enthusiastic about this.
It's been a whirlwind since we've released all this information. Obviously check it out. The cover story should be available online right about now. If you haven't seen the cover and you want to check it out, it's out there. The entire cover story should be on the site for you to peruse.
GameInformer.com/Elden Ring.
Yeah, 18 big pages of amazing stuff. This game completely blew me away, Alex. I don't even know what to tell you. It did. This game will, if these 10 hours can be extrapolated out into a full game, it will be FromSoftware's best game, which is a lot.
Considering that you are in the camp that Bloodborne is not only their best game, but one of the best games ever, correct?
Yes. Bloodborne is my current best game of all time. Yeah.
Wow. And this seems, not to put words in your mouth, but I think you've already said them, this seems to have a chance to usurp that. Again,
anything can happen, right? But if we take the 10 hours I played and assume the full game is of that quality or higher, then yes, it will handily dethrone Bloodborne. Yes.
Handily, this man says. Good Lord. So let's get into those 10 hours then. What about your experience is so revolutionary to you?
And I talked about this in the cover, and I'm sure I'll talk about it again in the review if I'm lucky enough to do that. This game doesn't feel like another open world game. It feels like an adventure. And I know that's I am distilling it down here, but your curiosity will take you places. You'll have awesome realizations, both terrifying encounters and both really cool finds, like finding secret treasures under the ground by sneaking past sleeping bears or going on a quest and questing. Questing has always been in FromSoftware games, but they didn't really feel like you were, you had to do X, Y, and Z in order to trigger new effects and advance a character storyline. But here it's like as you like it. Do you want to find this NPC and talk to them and go explore the place they tell you to go? Like there's breadcrumbs, right, to help you get to the bigger locations, but there's plenty of smaller locations off the beaten path. Everything's off the beaten path, okay? Go anywhere, do anything. If you can see it, you can go there kind of deal. But with FromSoftware's very almost signature atmospheric elements to it, where you're never really quite sure the area you're going into is safe. In fact, you can be sure it won't be, but you're still very intrigued and you want to go there and find out what's there. At the same time, more dialogue, more NPCs, more quests, more interactions than I think in any game, just in that 10 hours and any of the other games. They're really, really focusing on bringing more dialogue and story into things. And we're not going to talk about any of that here today. No story elements, but certainly happy to talk about the gameplay and mechanics and all that stuff and how it feels. And just completely blown away by the scale of things. Maybe the dungeon is one room with a chest in it that you snuck past some enemies to get to. Maybe the dungeon is multi-layered with several different checkpoints. Maybe it's a giant dungeon. We got to explore the first legacy dungeon in the game, which is much more dangerous than the outside world and a much more dialed down traditional Souls dungeon, but they really made sure to ramp it up to, forget 11, let's go to 12. And, embracing all the new elements they've added to the game, like, the jump button, which they've done before, but never in a dungeon diving capacity. Like, you're going to be in the dungeon exploring every nook and cranny, like jumping around sides and trying to you're going to fall to your death several times, of course, during this process, but you're going to find all kinds of interesting things instead of just going through the level. They don't feel like levels. They feel like actual locations. As much as I love Souls and Bloodborne, they are levels, right? You can tell, okay, loop back here, do this thing here. You actually feel like you're exploring a castle or a dungeon or a jail or whatever. You're in the moment, you're there, and it feels like a living, breathing entity to be discovered.
And that's amazing considering that, those games have been a little bit more linear, like you said, in the past. And now it's that was one of the questions coming into this, right? Was, are they going to be able to fill this meaningfully? And it sounds like at least for the first 10 hours, they've been able to do that, right?
Oh, and I can, again, I was still restricted in my play. There were areas I couldn't go to, things I couldn't do, but I was so much more freedom than the closed network test. And I think a lot of people have just assumed that the network test is what this game is. But when we had those invisible walls taken away from us and we could just see and go places, and even then we were still restricted, right? It's going to be, and still I had the most incredible experience ever. And when those when I can just go anywhere from the start, I'm just going in a straight line. I'm picking a line and I'm just going. When I get my hands on the full game, right?
Dan, I assume like, you've got this giant open world, right? And you've got all of these like sporadic areas, all of these, you kind of mentioned like everything's off the beaten path. I assume there will be moments like in Bloodborne where you're going through the cathedral ward, and if you go through that, then you get to the, the Hemwick Lane, and if you go past that, then you get to another. Like, I assume there are still like linear branches as well.
There is they've put in guidance for those who really are looking. A lot of people could feel completely overwhelmed by having no direction. If you need a little direction, they do have like sort of the checkpoint to checkpoint thing called the Guiding Grace. So if you are a player who doesn't want the experience of just going in and going everywhere off the bat, and they want some sort of instruction about, well, yeah, that Badlands wasteland area over there might have like level 70 enemies or something, so you probably want to stay in the green zone, Limgrave, and we'll take you on that path. You can follow that trail, or you can say F it and just go wherever you want, which is what I'm going to do. But that trail is there for players who are looking for a little bit more of a templated experience. A little bit of, obviously you're still going to get sucked away on adventures in every which way, but it will be more of a, yes, maybe you should go here. You can see that on your map.
Is that an option you can turn off, or is it just like a visual cue?
It's a visual cue on the map. It's a visual cue on the map called Guiding Grace, and it kind of points you in a direction. It's certainly not explicit like you must go here now, but it'll take you on a trail that is, again, if you feel like you're overwhelmed, and you may, because just off the bat, it's really strange to talk about this in terms of other Souls games, because as you mentioned, Hemwick Lane. So in Bloodborne, maybe there's 2 to 3 different directions you can go, but we're talking completely omnidirectional, and they're all different experiences to be had at different levels of challenge and discovery, and it's like taking that. It's not comparable, and I know not everybody's had a chance to check it out yet, so I get that, but we can't look at it in terms of, in Dark Souls 3 we can go one direction here, one direction there, and there's a sequence break we could do maybe, or in Bloodborne we can go X, Y, and Z. This is just, if it's X, Y, and Z, we've just taken the whole alphabet and thrown it at you, and now you can go to any of those letters anytime you want.
And we're adding the Greek alphabet and the Chinese and the whole,
correct. And instead of just having A goes to B goes to C, we now have, you could, again, squared. The possibilities are
You're telling
really
me A can go to L?
Yeah,
if it wants to?
It could.
Wow.
It could. We're breaking all the rules with this one, and I'm really impressed just in the open field stuff that I saw in one zone.
Yeah.
We have to extrapolate that out to like 6 major zones for the demigods, at least. We don't know. There could be more. But that's like, we're just assuming one major demigod per one major zone, as they've done in the previous games. But the trail there will not be nearly as corridor-like.
For sure.
With these open fields in play.
I want to go back to, you talked about the network test a little earlier, and some people got their hands on that, some people didn't. I'm curious, are there any specific differences you noticed between your time playing those? Because you played like 20 hours of the network test.
Yes, absolutely. Item drops were different across the board. So that was very different. We didn't start with the same class loadouts. Spirit summons, I think, may have been upgraded for the network test, although I can't say. The player felt a little bit more powerful off the bat in the network test, but all this stuff is subject to change, right? And probably they always are tweaking dials down to the 0 hour before in terms of balancing and stuff. But yeah, certainly the spirit summons are going to be a really cool element to dive into, and they can be upgraded. I did not unlock upgrading in my 10 hours, but it's clearly there, and those are something that you can fall back on to help you get through those big boss battles. But for me, they were very weak, and the boss killed them in one shot. So they didn't really do anything in the boss battle, but that's okay. I was there for that. And again, I know a lot of players have been intimidated by FromSoftware games in the past. This will be one of the shining examples of, yes. So for the old school players, the challenge will still be there, and it will still be amazing. In fact, I predict this game will have bigger challenges than any FromSoftware game yet, given what we've seen in the boss. But you've never been able to just say, okay, I can't beat this giant boss guy What do I do now? My options are to go grind. Maybe I have one other area to go to. In this, you just go to the entire other game. So if you get stuck, you've got a huge world to go to, and you probably will get stuck. I think it almost feels like that's an intentional thing that they want you to go out and explore before you face these huge hulking challenges. So I think this will be a great game to onboard people because of the options, but it isn't going to be any easier. Okay, if you're going in this and you expect you will not be tested or challenged, I mean that's kind of the whole point.
For sure.
Is to get you in that space where you reach a level of extreme adversity that equals an extreme triumph and a sense of victory that you can't find anywhere else.
Do you think though that, because I think a lot of the talk I saw coming out of the network test was about the spirits and how helpful they were, and then your experience, they leveled those down. Do you think if you focused on the spirits more in your 10 hours, they would have been the boon that they were in the network test? Or do you think they completely
I think that the spirits are going to be great, and they're only available in some encounters. I think that the way that From is going to structure the game, this is some speculation, is that critical path boss fights will include spirit summons. And then there's going to be some out of the way, the DLC style bosses, Sister Friede, Dark Eater Midir, Orphan of Kos, these big, really big names that are just like the most epic boss battles ever. Those will probably be tucked away and optional in out of the way areas that you're really going to have to go find, and you're going to have to opt into those, right? And spirit summons, if they're even available for those fights, probably won't do much for you. Nothing will, right? These are going to be... They've gone to 3-phase as their big boss battles before. I would not be shocked to see a 4-phase or 5-phase encounter in this game as an optional glory battle outside of the, we're going to have to look for these. And, that's the first thing I'm going to do if I am lucky enough to review the game, is going to be like, all right, screw all the early game stuff. We're going to the furthest reaches of the world that I can go to initially, see if I can kill enemies out there to get like a ton more runes and souls early on. And then I'll just come back and, again, other players can do this too. You can come back if you don't. We got to fight Godric, who's been shown extensively, the multi-armed fallen king of Stormville, who's got all kinds of tricks up his sleeve. Dude has more animations than any entry level. But, looking at it now, I just played through Dark Souls 3 again, like what any given week, right? And just looking at the early game bosses in that game, like Vort, who's got like 3 moves. Looking at Godric's kit with his he's got like a zillion different animations and change-ups and mix-ups, and he's the first major boss. The later bosses in the game, my expectations are very high, and I think they will be met.
Hey Dan, you said he has tricks up his sleeve, but he's multi-armed. How many sleeves does he have?
Well, he takes off his stuff right at the beginning. It's a big showpiece, like, hey, I've got tons of arms and a giant axe, and I'm going to use this axe and these arms. And of course, he's got all their abilities that come online during the fight. And again, I thought it was super challenging. I was definitely underleveled for it because I didn't spend a whole lot of time. My going in with those 10 hours, they are very precious 10 hours. So I tried to avoid all of the areas that I'd already been to in the closed network test. That would have given me that sort of entry level backdrop safety net of levels and items. So I just went right into Stormville basically, and I don't regret that. It was great. It's a really cool dungeon, and it's fascinating to see how the dungeon is laid out because after I learned how the dungeon layout was, I could run to Godric from the entrance very quickly if I wanted to. But there's so much other stuff on the periphery that I got involved in.
Yeah. Is Godric the one that has the dragon arm?
Yes.
That's just, oh god. That's the first boss?
No. That's the first.
Okay.
There are bosses everywhere in this game.
Okay.
I have no doubt that there'll be more bosses in this game than any FromSoftware game, but they seem to have embraced the Sekiro kind of thing where we've got mid bosses, we've got baby bosses, we've got middle bosses, we've got baby giant bosses.
They're so cute.
So the giant story bosses like Godric, I think are going to be, those are the set piece encounters that we've.
Yeah.
They're going to be much more intimidating than the standard fare. But you will be able to go and do many encounters in many different realms before coming back to Godric to do him if you please.
For sure. So talking about Godric, right, and the bosses in this game, you kind of said, you figure out the run to him, right? But I think that's one of the things that's turned me off from games is the boss challenge necessarily doesn't bother me. It's I'm dead and now I need to run 100 meters through every enemy that wants to kill me. Mm-hmm. That's different in this game experience, right? At least
you don't have to do that. For one, Godric is right next to a checkpoint. so he doesn't need one of these. But the stakes of Marika are out there, especially in the open field boss areas. So if you get killed out there by a boss, there's no run back. So basically, they've examined the game and taken out those extremely long runbacks to the bosses. Those of you who have played Dark Souls 2 DLC know the pain that is getting back to Sir Alan's room. There's nothing like that. Those pain points should be gone. It doesn't make anything less intense. Trust me. You're still getting. It just helps like getting right back into that boss fight.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I'm here for this challenge. Let's keep it going. Run it back. I've got him down. Roll here, block here, parry here. He's gonna do this move right now. There's the telegraph. I'm into it. It lets you just keep in the zone rather than get bogged down by getting tagged by a couple enemies trying to run back over a minute. You know what I mean?
For sure. And I think I know people in the Souls community will disagree with me, but that was one of the antiquated parts of that design that I
don't think they will disagree with you. I think that once they get any change is always going to be held up to some kind of scrutiny. I think even the most hardcore Souls fans will really like that change. I mean, all it does is let you get back into the meat of what we love, which is those big set piece boss fights. So
yeah, I feel like it's more respectful of your time in that way too. I do want to bring up, you did get to sit down with the one and only Miyazaki for
Absolutely.
this, right? Do you want to talk
From
about
Hell's
that?
Moving Castle?
Correct.
No,
yeah,
the other Miyazaki.
The other Miyazaki.
Both icons.
They are both incredible.
I don't know him.
Have they met each other, do you think?
I have no doubt that has to have happened, right?
Right.
Like,
yeah.
That's like antimatter, right? Like you don't want it to happen. It's like you can't ever have two Miyamotos in the universe. Like,
think about that. Think about a collaborative project between those two. That would be the most amazing thing ever, I think.
See you, George R.R. Goodbye. We love you. Checks in the mail, but we're getting the other in here.
That would be incredible. And more I think about that, wow, we really
love
need
that idea.
Right?
Yeah, let's make that happen. Can you brokerage that deal?
Spirited Away the game.
Oh my god, don't even.
by the Dark Souls. Oh my god, that would be the best game of all time.
Or like
Haku
I
is
don't want to play
fight.
Elden Ring now. Like I want
send it
Spirited
back.
Away.
Princess Mononoke the game.
Mononoke,
God,
that one would be
Riding around on your cool.
Yeah.
Dude, let's go.
Go fight some boars. I like this.
Oh my goodness.
Oh,
I mean, it fits. Like,
it
dark,
does actually work.
Spirit, but it just fits right into this FromSoftware suite already. Let's do it. All right.
Let's go. But anyways,
yes, we did get a 1 hour interview with him. It was really great to sit down and chat with him about games again. Certainly not our first time with him. It was, obviously we had to do it over Zoom due to the ongoing pandemic concerns, and it's not quite as awesome as it is IRL, but it was still very great to get some insight into the game stuff. We weaved a lot of those really interesting things that we found out into the cover story.
Mm-hmm. Did he recognize you? Because you said you've talked to him before.
I think so, but I can't be sure.
Yeah, right. He just put on a good face. I'm always curious with like the auteurs that you meet. Like, are they nice? Are they cool? Or are they just like in that rarefied
he's always
air? You know what I mean?
Always great in an interview, and he's kind of like once he comes out of his once he starts going with you, it's great. And talked about poison swamps and all that fun stuff. We've got some breakouts on the site to check out about that for sure.
Do you want to, I mean, I don't want to ruin the site content, right? But that's what I was curious about this too, is like, I feel like that's another thing. Some people on the internet are like, I don't want any more swamps. I don't want any of that. Do you want to talk about that at all?
Since our first time interview, he's always been really steadfast about including those, what are referred to as environmental challenges levels, where, the level is the boss, is a boss of its own style. And it's kind of like another, it's like an encounter to sort of like, I don't know, get you through it, right? It's something to be endured and come out the other side of adversity on top, if you will. And I was surprised this time chatting with him how he was like, I know how people feel about the swamps, but I just start making one and then I can't stop myself. So I have no...
I think anytime you say, I don't like that, it was tough, he's just going to keep adding them. So we got to trick him and be like, we love poison swamps.
Yeah, poison swamps.
Yeah.
I am curious to see how they'll be implemented in this game. I did not get to see any poison swamps in my playthrough. I kind of, we kind of assumed there's going to be poison swamps, but I didn't. I guess the depth of how into it he would be, I guess I was a little surprised by there. Mm-hmm. So that's interesting. We'll have to see how much suffering we endure in the poison swamp of Elden Ring.
Oh, I love it. Okay. So we talked about poison swamps. We talked about the Limgrave. Do you want to talk about any of the other stuff you saw, or do you want to save that because we have a bunch of video content
I think that if people want to see and engage with that stuff, the cover story is out, and you can check us out on YouTube. There's a lot more there. I just don't want to. I know a lot of people for this game, especially, don't want to have anything, and they're counting down the days until they start it. So, rather than go into those, we have those details, and here's the thing: I encourage you to check out the details that we do have. We have covered a lot of FromSoftware games in the past, early, and whatever they have shown us has been the sprinkles on the cake. Okay, so whatever we got, as cool as it may seem, and as like, oh, they got to see this new zone. It's not. It's going to be a complete nothing once the full scope and scale of this game are revealed. I have no doubt about that. Yeah, we
haven't even broken out like the sundae. The bananas haven't been cut. The cherry's still in the jar. There's so much we don't have.
It's true. Point. Everything we've seen, despite it being a lot, is completely surface level, and I cannot wait to get into this game. The Dan predicts on this one is that it's going to be the best thing ever.
And Dan doesn't deal in hyperbole unless he's going poggers.
I mean, listeners of the show probably know that I do take a more meted and conservative approach to the hype train. Mm-hmm. But I in this one, it just, if you're not sold after 10 hours, then I don't know. Sure, it could change. So we have to keep that in mind. Yeah. This could be like one thing that capitulates in the mid to the late game. I have no expectation of that happening. In fact, I think it's going to go the other direction, and this thing is just going to. They're going to be screaming about this game. Okay, this is the one. This is the one.
Who
if I have to say,
is it you?
Everybody.
Yeah.
This is the one. All right.
Blake, you go be screaming from the rooftops.
What's interesting? I've had a storied career with these Souls games. With this
have you?
Hidetaka Miyazaki and
have you?
His merry band of weirdos over there at FromSoftware making these games. Every time they put one of these damn games out, I tell you what, I see the trailer and I'm like, that's literally the coolest looking game of all time. Like, they put Bloodborne out and I'm like, are you kidding me?
But that is the coolest game of all time right now.
Dan, I'm sorry. It's my time. They put this game out. I'm like, a game has never looked cooler than Bloodborne. And I play it and I'm like, I can't. I just can't. I don't doubt that they're great. I fully believe they're great. But like, I just can't do it. I don't chew on gravel for fun either. And recently, I didn't even tell Dan this, which is a betrayal of our friendship and our colleagueship. I went and played Sekiro. And I got some distance in it. I fought the big, well, I didn't fight the big snake, but I hid from the big snake. I fought the dude on his big ox. I beat the crap out of that man on his big bull ox horse thing. So good.
That's such a good fight. I love that fight.
Yeah, it was awesome. Guy on an ox, by the way. It's a horse.
Whatever, man. Doesn't matter. And,
there's a pretty big difference between an ox and a horse.
Yeah, whatever. I'm
the
not.
Speeds are very different at which they run.
These are different animals, okay?
I'm not a zoologist. All right, I'm a journalist. Anyway, I got far enough, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. It's too hard.
Do you think?
I do not encourage players to start with that particular game. By the way, we've had this.
Well,
this comes up a lot.
To be fair, Sekiro is by several orders of magnitude the farthest I've ever made it in a Souls game. In Bloodborne, I can't get past the first area. In Sekiro, I put some time into it before I was like, I'm done. And I was reading Dan's cover story. I was reading this thing with my little peepers, making edits along the way, doing my job. And I was like, you know what, Dan Tech? This is the one. This is it. Dan sold me on it. And it really comes down to one thing. This checkpointing system before bosses.
For real.
I was like, that's it. That was it. Because it's not the difficulty of Souls games that turns me off. It's the process of getting back to areas that tends to turn me off. Like, I'll have a great time with Sekiro. I'll fight a boss, die within 2 seconds, and I'm like, okay. Well, there's a 5 to 10 minute process of getting back there that is not for me, and I don't want to deal with. And when I was reading Dan's cover story, and he's talking about, I'm not sure what they're called. I'm sorry. We'll call them checkpoints, for lack of a better word, before these bosses. I was like, I think that's the one. I think that's what sells me on it. Because I don't mind a hard game. I just don't enjoy the
tedium.
The tedium of the Souls games.
And I want to say something real quick about that. Like, I think all too often when we talk about the Souls games and FromSoftware games, the discussion only revolves around difficulty, and people really miss the point about all the other amazing things that these games do in terms of environmental storytelling, incredible atmosphere, and world building. This stuff all gets thrown out the window, and the only discourse we ever seem to have online is about difficulty. And I think there's a lot of other great parts of these games that people are missing out on because they're too...
The lore.
The lore is really great.
The lore!
Actually.
Yeah.
That's what I liked about Bloodborne.
I think, somewhat to Dan's point, like, I do agree, and I'm very compelled, or I'm very drawn to the aesthetics of these games and, like, want to play them and want to enjoy them. But there are core design decisions in Souls games, or From games, I guess maybe is a better way to put it, that I know players like a lot that just don't gel with me. And it's not the difficulty. Like fighting that dude on the horse or the ox, no one knows for sure what animal that is.
There's no way to confirm it either.
No one knows. Like, I had a great time fighting him. But it's not that turns me off. But I think Elden Ring, of what I've heard of new additions and kind of tweaks to the typical From formula, it is one of my more anticipated games to check out this year. Not my most anticipated. It's no Ghostwire Tokyo. Let's put it on wax right now. But like, I am very, very much looking forward to playing this game, and in no small part because I read Dan Tech's cover story, which was great. Check it out at your local GameStop.
Yeah, Dan really, really did a great job with the cover story.
Yeah,
you know, he does a great job with everything, but this one is like, you could tell he was born for this moment type of thing. You know. Jordan,
now, is it the best thing ever, Dan, when we consider the cosmos and the universe and everything that's happened in written history?
Wow.
You did say the best thing ever.
I mean, I do. This
Okay,
will be
okay.
this game. I think will be the best game that is the best game of all time. There it is.
better than chicken wings, right there.
I really do have that sense right now.
Okay.
Dan
Alrighty.
Tech.
Coming in hot.
I admire the boldness of you.
And I admire it as well. Thank you.
Well, if you want more on Elden Ring, you are definitely in the right place. If you want something a little bit more in-depth story-wise, we have it on youtube.com/Game Informer and GameInformer.com. If you want to read that, the interview we talked about, right, GameInformer.com. We archived, if you didn't see, we archived Dan's amazing Twitch stream that he did 3.5 hours by himself, just Q&A. Yeah. Dealing with answering the chat, really awesome stream. So shout out to Dan. Once this is over in like 3 months, he can finally take a break.
Yeah, right.
Dan, I put 2 questions in chat during that stream you didn't answer.
I'm sorry I didn't get to them. We got to as many as we could in that. I did want to go like another hour longer, but I figured we had hit a lot of the main points.
Yeah.
Yes, we did.
Blake, I saw your first question and then I muted you.
Yeah.
Cool.
Smart move.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Look, you do whatever you want, Ryan, as long as my check comes in every 2 weeks. You know, it doesn't bother me.
I had a blast. We're all good. See?